War II. Around 1942 and 1945, when Imperial Japan invaded the Commonwealth of the Philippines during World War II, the Japanese occupation of the Philippines took place.
The Japanese called them comfort women, a term derived from the Japanese word ianfu, combining the Chinese characters meaning comfort or solace.
The enslavement camps where they were forced to have sexual intercourse with Japanese soldiers were called comfort stations and were often the same garrisons where they were being held. Comfort women is a linguistically wrapped categorization of the thousands of women and girls, many from poor communities, who were forced to serve as sex slaves.
Japan rationalized the sex slave practice as a way to curb the rape of local women by Japanese troops following the event known as the Rape of Nanking in 1937, when their soldiers sexually assaulted tens of thousands of women in the city that was then the capital of China.
Their private pain, hidden in shame, was concealed from the outside world. But by the early 1990s, details of their experiences began to emerge in a series of lawsuits against Japan. The Philippines, their confinement ranged from a matter of nights to more than a year. When the war was over, these women were left with physical and psychological scars, post-traumatic stress disorder, sexually transmitted disease, and damaged reproductive systems.
The conquest of the Philippines began on 8 December 1941, 10 hours after the Pearl Harbor attack. The American Asiatic Fleet in the Philippines retreated to Java on December 12, 1941, seeking aerial support.
General Douglas MacArthur was juvenile, abandoning his men in Corregidor for Australia, 4,000 kilometers away on the night of 11 March 1942.
On April 1942, the 76,000 hungry and sick American and Filipino soldiers in Bataan submitted and were required to undertake the notorious Bataan Death March, where 7,000 to 10,000 died or were killed. On 6 May, the 13,000 survivors of Corregidor retreated after over 3 years before Japan's surrender. Japan invaded the Philippines.
60% of island and many jungles and mountain areas. 60% of the islands, many jungle and mountain areas, were occupied by an extremely successful guerrilla campaign by Philippine resistance groups. They were provided by submarine by MacArthur and sent reinforcements and soldiers.